How do we fight back against those who violate us? How is everyone doing today? I'm Thomas, and welcome to my channel. I do primarily educational videos, books, and courses, and I focus on the tree of life, especially at this point in time. The tree of life is this model of our faculties of consciousness. At least that's the short version. And it has 10 different circles or spheres and really 12 different components. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then there is a thing, an applied circle or sphere called the abyss. And then there is a 0 above the tree. And so that's 12 different components, 12 different faculties of consciousness. This is our animal consciousness, our instinct, our survival, the state of our bodily health. This is our domestic consciousness, what we're getting growing up in the first years of our lives, where we're highly receptive and we memorize what we see from our caregivers and we copy them. It's imitation. Then at the A-sphere, we move out into the public world, into the conventional wisdom, into the establishment, and they tell us what we're supposed to believe. And we can get into the A-sphere by basically believing what they tell us, rationalizing what they tell us, and embodying what they tell us. And you know, by doing that, regurgitating some things on, you know, different exams that we might have, we can actually move into the A-sphere ourselves. But then, you know, and be called an expert or a part of the establishment. But there are many people who, you know, see what's going on in the A-sphere and they have problems with it. You know, for whatever reason, they don't believe in what's going on here. And so they move over here to the 7th sphere, whereas the A-sphere is the real world, the 7th sphere is the imaginary world. And so these are for the 7th sphere is for people who are disgruntled with the A-sphere and come over here and try to propose alternatives to the A-sphere, primarily through things like artistic expression and invention. And they use their intuition, their pleasure principle, their inspiration to do this. And it's their creative spark, their creativity. And that these things also motivate them to move up further up the tree to see what's up here. And they will move into the 6th sphere, which is our free will faculty, our ability to pay attention and to make decisions. And we are all really located here, but it kind of seems like we're located here because our attention, which is our part of our free will faculty, has kind of been usurped. And we are paying attention to the lower part of the tree. So our attention, which is really a vector or a direction, is pointed in this direction. And the first decision, the first free will decision that we can really make is to turn ourselves around so that we can point our attention up the tree instead of down the tree. And then so once we point up the tree, then we can focus on at least these first two, which are, you know, where the law is located. This is, you know, our sense of justice, otherwise known as karma. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, and as you sow, so shall you reap. The enforcement of the law. Incidentally, law is there's several different kinds of law. We really deal with the the law here, the codes and the edicts and the commandments. And I guess this is also would be like maritime law. So law itself is an acronym: land, air, and water. So unfortunately, these people here keep us, and maybe even here, keep us locked into this maritime law, the law of water. And part of our spiritual evolution is to move into what you call sovereignty, or to embrace the land of the law of the land, which guarantees, which takes into account our sovereignty, our spiritual nature, and our creator within. Whereas our admiralty law is really, a commandment. So at the fifth sphere, we are it's our sense of justice, and we are subject to the enforcement of the law, of the natural law. And the natural law here is articulated in things like cosmologies, theories of everything, grand unified theories. And certainly there are some that are better than others. But the point here at the fourth sphere is that it comes about through holistic examination, experimentation, intuition, and insight, and observation about how things really are. And this could occur over the course of many generations or even civilizations, to refine and define the cosmology. And really, like, the law itself is eternal, but our interpretation in the cosmology of law is subject to change. The better the cosmology is, the longer it lasts. But every cosmology has a limit, and as we move into greater and greater understanding about how things are in the universe, or understanding about how things are in the universe, or even overstanding, then we refine these cosmologies and make them more and more accurate, and therefore they last longer and longer. This is also universal language and universal love, giving, seeking nothing in return, and loving our enemies. Then the abyss here is about our psychic powers, our ability to tune into and recognize omens. The third sphere, the second sphere, and the first sphere are the divine triangle, where we are going into our center within ourselves. This is our omnipotence, all powerful, tapped into through chanting mantra or other sound synchronization techniques. If you've heard of cymatics, cymatics is similar concept. Then the second sphere is omniscience, all-knowing, or wisdom, which has to do with being able to solve problems. And then the first sphere is omnipresence, which is our deepest center that we share with all other beings. So it's a unified, it's a universe. We unify with everything else here at our deepest center. And then the zero goes even beyond that, maybe out to the periphery, from the center to the periphery. And it is the part of the universe that we're not able to grasp. So this is a mystery. This is the fundamental mystery that underlies everything. Okay, so those are the 12 faculties of consciousness. Now, what I've done with the model also is, you can say that you can apply the tree to everything. You can place the tree on, you can place the tree on this this remote control here, and you can break the remote control down into its 12 component parts. I don't know why you would want to do that, but that's theoretically, what you would do. So what I've done is I've superimposed a miniature tree onto each sphere to break down each sphere into its 12 component parts. So, we have the 12 component parts broken down into 12 component parts each, for a total of or product of 144 different fractal faculties, or what I call stages of life. The stages are not chronological stages, but they are dramatic stages. So 144 different dramatic stages of life. And I've written all those up into a list, annotated list. And if you'd like to get a free copy of that list, just click the link in the description and I'll send one out to you immediately. That list will help you kind of keep track of this seemingly bewildering variety of different videos that I'm doing in this series. It's 144 different videos, and just, to give you a little bit of encouragement, some of these videos are much easier than others. Some of them seem to be impossibly difficult, and they are for me too, to a certain extent. So, the key is just to kind of keep pressing along. If you don't understand it, just let it wash over you. Don't let it get you discouraged. Just let it wash over you, and over time you might pick up a clue or two that opens up the lock to that particular video or that particular concept. That's kind of how this esoterica operates. You're not gonna always get everything. You just gotta take it all in, and take the part that you resonate with, and the rest of it, just leave it and let it percolate or marinate, in your head. And, eventually, you might discard it as being a fallacy, or you might eventually figure it out and it will become a deeper, you'll have it at a deeper level. So, just don't get discouraged. These videos are widely varied, and you're not going to get all of them. Some of them you'll resonate with, and some you won't. But just stay with it, and some things that are a mystery to you now will be crystal clear at some point later, if you do persevere and stay with it. The tree of life is a difficult subject. It's a difficult learning curve, but it's not like, impossibly difficult. As I've said before, it's kind of like your high school chemistry class. It's not any harder than that. Most of what is difficult about most of esoterica is that you have to unlearn, all the garbage that you learned, in school, and through the conventional wisdom and through the media. And that gives you a certain paradigm that you have that gets shattered. And so your resistance to the shattering of your paradigm a lot of times blinds you to your ability to be able to assimilate the new information. So you just have to go into it with an open mind, and within a little while you'll be able to separate the wheat from the chaff, figure out what parts of your conditioning and your paradigm are still valid, and what parts of them will fall apart like a house of cards under scrutiny. Okay, so today we're looking at, out of those 144 fractal faculties or stages of life, We're looking at number 63. Again, the question, how do we fight back against those who violate us? And when I say violate, that includes violence. So violence and violation are one and the same thing. Violation is maybe a less violent form of violence. It's maybe a non-physical violence. Okay, so number 63 is called Conquest of Violence or Stolen Moments, which is Oliver Nelson. Stage number 63 is about resolute fighting for nonviolence and against unnecessary violence in our own lives. Public works or stolen land. Use nonviolent criteria to evaluate theft. It is not stealing per se that is against the code of ethics. It is fouling. It is violation. It is trespasses. It is not necessarily wrong to loot the suits. If we steal a moment from the powers that be's monologue, or if the suits are so stuffed that they don't even notice something's missing, we'll be instantly rewarded for relieving their waste. What they were gonna waste. Steals are permitted and even praised, even prized in sport and nature too. If we do not protect the ball, it will get stolen. If we do not protect our crop, it will get eaten. Are stolen moments only a weapon of the weak? Not if we pick the battleground, make ourselves a moving target, stick lightly, tread lightly, move swiftly to steal a moment from the powers that be, their airtime, their monologue, their monopoly. Then get out. Be a secret agent of nonviolence. Satyagraha, truth force, nonviolent force. Use their own rules and resources to point at their own weaknesses. Take advantage of our invisibility. Have a trump card to throw them a curve. Nonviolence is a key to build our alternatives outside of this culture. Calculate whatever leads to the least violence, whatever leads to the least waste. This is the touchstone. The nonviolent end justifies the nonviolent means. God of war, goddess of preventing war. Blades of nonviolence, use our swords of truth to cut the ties that bind, cut our conditionings, cut our attachments, and move further into the teeth of the dread. Taking control of, assuming accountability for our own karma from religion. We begin to live down our own karma by realizing, by repenting, by reconciling, by forgiving ourselves, and by resolving not to do it again. Okay, that is number 63, Conquest of Violence. Forgot to mention before that this number 63 is here right in the fifth sphere, if you didn't guess that. Maybe I should not tell you where it is, and you can take a guess and I can tell you afterward. But conquest of violence is actually the eighth fractal of the fifth sphere. So the fifth sphere is really kind of like an inversion of the eighth sphere. The eighth sphere is the establishment, the powers that be, the institutions, and the fifth sphere is like the subculture. This is you can see that the fifth sphere is directly above the eighth sphere. So the fifth sphere trumps the eighth sphere. Um, you know, it's kind of like the truth. The truth comes out eventually. The eighth sphere is like suppressing the truth. It's kind of like pushing a ball underwater. The eighth sphere has to constantly keep pressure on that ball to keep it down. The minute it lets go, the ball pops up. And that's kind of like how the eighth sphere interacts with the fifth sphere. Truth eventually wins out over the eighth sphere, but it can be a difficult process. So at the fifth sphere, you're creating a subculture that is an undeniable improvement over the eighth sphere, but you don't necessarily get exposed. It's a subculture, so hardly anybody knows about it. And in many cases, it can be even a subculture of one. And this process of nonviolence is, a process of revealing the truth, so that this eventually gets eroded. So this is really like the anomalous. In the historian of science, Thomas Kuhn, talked about that in terms of paradigm shifts. He talked about it in the context of the scientific revolution and the Copernicus idea that the heliocentric universe, that the universe is centered around, or at least the solar system is centered around the sun, and the Earth goes around the sun, whereas before that, the Pope and everybody else had maintained that the Earth was the center of the universe. I won't get into the rightness or wrongness of those two different positions, but the point is that it took several generations, before that heliocentric viewpoint was accepted, because Copernicus was afraid to articulate his theory for the last 35 years of his life, and only did so on his deathbed. And then Galileo tried to forward the theory, and he was banished to an island. And Bruno tried to do it, and he was burned at the stake. And so they persecute the fifth sphere, and they isolate the fifth sphere, and keep it out of the paradigm, keep it out of the conventional wisdom, or so-called wisdom. And so it takes but over the course of time, the truth pops out in terms of anomalies. There are scientific measurements that are made that undercut the conventional wisdom, and eventually there's too many different anomalies, and there are too many holes in the theory, and so eventually people realize that they need to seek something different. So then eventually Newton comes around, almost 150 years later, and he finally writes the Principia in the late 1687, and that was the first kind of accepted form of this new theory that had been around for almost 150 or over 150 years, if you count the 35 years Copernicus kept it under wraps. So I'm just saying that the fifth sphere and the eighth sphere are related that way. The eighth sphere is the paradigm and the status quo, and the fifth sphere is directly above the eighth sphere. So it's undeniable that it's a better option, but the eighth sphere has the access to all of the the media and all of the educational system, and so the eighth sphere suppresses the fifth sphere. But the basic laws of gravity and viscosity and buoyancy means that the fifth sphere is eventually going to show itself as being superior. But they try to kick the can down the road as long as possible, in order to protect the powers that be, the people who are already the professors and the, standard bearers and the establishment. They know that they'll be disgraced if it comes out that they were wrong about all this. So they try to suppress it for as long as possible. And they persecute the people who come up with the alternatives, and they isolate them and they marginalize them. And a lot of times they never use actual content to debunk the new theory. Instead, they use ad hominem attacks. So they attack the person, but not the thing that they are espousing. And it's just a method of distraction. They never engage with you on the merits of the argument. It's all about personalities and so forth. So anyway, that is stage number 63 and the eighth fractal of the fifth sphere. And we will resume with a new fractal, I guess, tomorrow. And if you made it all the way to the video, congratulate yourself by clicking the like button for me. And you can also share the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, you can click the link if you'd like a free copy of the annotated list of all 144 fractal faculties. Have a good day.